Welcome to the Books and Beer Book Club, coming to you from the Columbus, Wisconsin Library Annex. We're a different kind of book club, only reading books by authors who can visit us in person or via Zoom for the discussion. We've been going strong for more than 10 years, since 2015, meeting nearly every month. These fun and informative videos are replays of our book discussions. I'm your host, Valerie Beal. I'm an author myself, and I enjoy interviewing our guest authors and facilitating the questions from our readers, both in person and on Zoom. We hope you enjoy this replay. To join us live, please check out our schedule on Facebook at Books and Beer Columbus. Welcome, Maggie. Thank you for driving all the way out from Milwaukee.
Thank you.
We appreciate this very much. We had this schedule for quite a while, and I was getting nervous about location. I'm like, I don't want to switch everybody's locations. I want to be able to keep the schedule going. So I had to refresh my memory because I read your book last year, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Me too.
Yeah, did you? Just that was a good thing, right? To go back and go, okay. I generally remembered that she's an assistant district attorney. And it's Milwaukee, right? Tell us though first, because I'm not sure if anybody knows a lot about your background. I'm always curious what your resume is like and how you came to writing, because most authors have had vast, long careers in other areas before they end up writing. So
that fits me. One of the things that I do that is related to writing, but is something that I'm kind of well known for in certain circles, is I run a podcast for writers, and I interview debut authors of women's fiction that are members of Women's Fiction Writers Association, which is a national association of about 2,000 people, mainly women that write women's fiction. And the reason I'm saying that is so many of them say, oh, I really always wrote little things. When I was 8, I wrote a little. That's not me. I never imagined I would be a writer. And I did go to journalism school when I first started college. I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I went to Northwestern for their journalism school when I was a freshman. And so I did that kind of writing, but that's, nonfiction. And so it was really about 7 years ago, 8 years ago, for most of my career, I owned a place called Art Source, which was a art consulting company that was nationwide, that sold things that hang on the wall that are pictures, but not to individual people, but to facilities like healthcare, hospital. I had a government contract, so I put them in VAs, in forts, in dorm rooms, hotels, restaurants, things like that. And I got it to be about 4 million in sales. Ooh, and we had about 27 people. And then I thought, how do I stop doing this? Really, because my first husband and I had started it kind of on a lark. We both had PhDs in psychology. I had done that after journalism. I had gone into psychology. And we moved up to Milwaukee to be close to his kids. And so he wanted to go back into being a psychologist. And I was like, I'm running this huge company. And I thought I was just going to do this for like 3 or 4 years. And now it's 20 years later. And so when I had a chance to sell it, I did. And that was about 6 or 7 years ago now. A couple of years before that, I started just being interested a little bit in writing, like it could be something I could do after I sold the business. And I started going into some writing classes. I went to one up in Door County at the whatever that place, the clearing.
Oh, yeah.
I had a good time there. And I tell that story also because in that first class, the woman said, okay, take out a piece of paper and say, I could never write a book about. And I put mothers and daughters. And then I tell people I can't stop writing about that because my first book had mothers and daughters. This book has mothers and daughters. And my third book that I'm writing now has stepmothers and stepdaughters, which is funny because I'm not a mother myself biologically, although I have had stepchildren. And my mother and I, and this is in my bio online, so I'm not letting it out of the bag, and we did not get along very well. And she was a really typical 50s, 60s housewife. I was a very typical overachiever, wanting to have a career, didn't know if I wanted to get married, didn't know if I wanted to have kids. So we were just really in a different lifestyle. And that was not uncommon for people my age. I graduated high school in 67. So I was in that love generation in the 60s, kind of in Oklahoma. Yeah. Um, I mean, Tulsa's a pretty urban kind of center. It wasn't the rural Oklahoma. But it was still, I couldn't wait to get out of there. I couldn't wait to go into the bigger world, which is part of why I went to Northwestern. And so anyway, that's a long way to say, I don't know why I'm writing about mothers and daughters exactly, but I now have a daughter, a stepdaughter who is 25, 26. She's been married about 2 or 3 years, and she's a digital nomad. She and her husband renovated a bus, a small school bus, and they travel around the country and take odd jobs. And they've been doing that for a couple of years now. I don't know they're going to have kids. My husband, a different husband than I talked about before, has a couple of older sons. One is getting married in September. One is not yet married. So I don't have any grandchildren, but I do have this one stepdaughter and two stepsons. And I kind of raised the stepdaughter and the middle stepson from the time they were about 10 or 12. I was very involved in their upbringing. So that's informing my third book about the stepmother, stepdaughter. So anyway, I started taking writing classes. I joined Women's Fiction Writers Association. I joined Red Oak Writing, which is something that's in Milwaukee. I got to be friends with some people that were writers, and I just kind of, my first book was called Truth and Other Lies. It was much more of a women's fiction than this one is, which I think is kind of a suspense. I call it a suspense.
Oh, it's very much.
Yeah, very much. I mean, it's not,
I mean,
it's not thriller. It's
Right.
not like, oh my God, somebody's approaching her down the alley with a knife.
right.
But there is winds up being, spoiler alert, 2 murders, and almost a third one. But you've gotten this far in it, even though you haven't. I don't know if anybody read Two Nights in Lisbon. It was a book out a couple of years ago, but I would highly recommend it if you like kind of political thriller, clever puzzle things that are also feminist. But it had a plot in which the first half of it, you think it is a kidnapping. A woman is in Lisbon with her new husband and he gets kidnapped. And so it's like a kidnap story. And then at the halfway point, it becomes an entirely different story. But it's like, oh, there was something else totally going on. And I always thought what I set out to write here was, what if not just a simple stalker? What if she was looking for her stalker? And that's what the book is about. What happened? And then it is someone framing her for person she's now looking for. Someone that really is much more of a revenge, that she has no idea who they are. And they have some connection to this guy that she thought was the stalker, or we think maybe is the stalker. But so that was my attempt to do that. I also am a big movie buff fan. So for those of you that have read the whole book, you can go back and read the last scene. Well, the next to the last scene, not the little coda at the end, but the one where she is with Max. And that is kind of my homage to the Maltese Falcon. And so you can read that and see if that doesn't kind of fit with it a little bit. So that's a long way of saying.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, and this is really an intricately plotted. It has so many really good thinking points, like the twists and turns, and you've got to keep your wits about you as the reader too, which is good.
Yes.
And I like books that challenge me.
Yes.
I mean, we've all read books where you're like,
that came out of nowhere.
Or that, right.
Or I
know who it is from the beginning. And that's the worst thing ever, right? Like, and that was what I was scared about when I was writing a suspense book too, is like, oh gosh, I hope this isn't obvious. Because after a while, all
there's a person that you think
yeah,
probably is this person.
right. And then I love it when I'm surprised.
Yeah.
And a good twist. And I did not know you had a PhD in psychology, but it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes an awful lot of sense because I was going to ask you if you had a psychology background at all. Because
No, it's in her bio, in the bio in the book.
is it in the bio of the book?
back, I think.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated with human behavior and what like you talk about a theme of trauma here for the character who is the culprit, the villain.
One of the culprits.
Yeah. Like,
There's two culprits.
And it's interesting, like I'm always interested in what will trip somebody up into a lifelong trauma and where other people, the same thing will happen to them and they don't go off the deep end.
Right.
And, it's interesting in our makeup, like how other people can maybe absorb those blows in a different way or a better way. And or maybe they resolve them in some way.
Yeah.
And don't end up becoming.
Well, and I also was interested in the fact that people are not so often, I think most people are, what you see is what you get. But there are people that you meet that you find out later, boy, they were really hiding who they really were. And that's, of course, usually the most interesting characters to write. And I had that in my first book. I had someone that was not who she seemed to be. And in this book, I have a person well, several people, but one in particular that is acting exactly kind of the opposite of what you think they would be if they were the person you wind up finding out they are. So that was interesting too. And there were also themes that, I mean, I liked, I'm kind of fascinated by how people, when they get to be adults, make friends. Particularly if they don't, like in my case, I don't have, a lot of times people that I know my age or younger, make women friends by their children are in school together.
Yeah.
And so they see each other at games and plays and things like that. Well, I didn't have that. So I was always kind of thinking, well, how do you make a friend when you're all grown up? I mean, not your husband, but somebody at church sometimes, but people don't go to church as much. And so I have the one character of Liv that is, just very open about saying, could we just be friends? She wants to be, she's new to the community. Could we get to be friends? And I thought that's kind of refreshing. I would like some time for somebody to just say that to me. Could we just be friends? And I have had people that kind of have become like that for me. And somebody in my book club that I one time it was at her house and I happened to be the person that was the last one out. And she started opening up about all these things that were going on with her and her husband. And we got to be, as a result, not just book club friends, but really close friends. And I thought, well, see, that happened. It was just kind of a fluke that it happened. And so I explored that. I liked exploring the theme of justice and her kind of realizing, because she's feeling guilty about something that happened in the past. And she's kind of from that also, she's trying to figure out who the stalker is, and she's thinking it's somebody that she prosecuted.
Which is a logical leap.
Yeah.
Right.
And so she's going through her old cases and she hires a private detective who is helping her look through these cases and exploring the people. And they have one interview with one guy that was innocent, but he was accused, and his life kind of fell apart because of that. And so it gets her thinking about, how many people that I prosecuted were innocent, or, I ruined their life by doing this. And even if they were guilty, how much, nobody's innocent, nobody is totally without a flaw. And so she's wrestling with that. So there were various things another thing that is interesting about this kind of book, and I usually tell this anecdote is, and I don't think this is a spoiler exactly. It does happen later on, but it's such a tiny thing. At one point, she is going with her daughter to a graveyard, and they go to this gravestone. And as I was writing it, I said something about, she looks down and there's a jar there with some flowers in it. And when I wrote that, I thought, okay, I hadn't planned that. And then I thought, I usually keep a little notebook on the side and it says, okay, questions you're going to need to answer before you get to the end.
Yes.
And so and this was fairly close to the end, and I thought, okay, you're going to need to say who's leaving those flowers, because she finds out that, in fact, it's not just this one time. Somebody is paying a florist there in town to put flowers on this grave every month. And so the cemetery manager thinks it's her, because he says, nobody has ever come by here before. So you're the first one. I thought it was you. I thought you were the one doing it. And she said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm thinking as the author, I don't know who's doing it either. I mean, I had an idea of who, and then I thought, but that wouldn't be something this person would do.
Right.
So either I'm going to have to figure out somebody that's doing that and it makes sense, or I'll just go back and I'll take the flowers out, you know?
I like though, it makes sense who's doing it.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
And it felt good.
Yes,
It was a very nice detail.
yeah, it was. And it was kind of something that she thought, oh, you're the one leaving the flowers,
Yes.
aren't you?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very kind of touching moment.
But you're right, though. People would want that resolution.
Yes.
And they would bug you about it.
Yes.
They'd be like, but you never told us who was leaving the flowers.
Yes, exactly. The other thing was the names of the children that have now grown up. As I was writing, I was thinking, well, she would have known the names for the man that she was involved with, his children.
That's right.
So the minute she met these people, she would say, well, that's,
Yeah.
but so I got to come up with something about that. Because obviously she would know those names, even if she just Googled them or something. And so then I came up with, well, they didn't like their names, and they changed, both of them changed their name to their middle name. So, all along I'm thinking, well, you're going to need to answer that one. You're going to need to answer that one. And that keeps me on my toes too, because it leads to things that I don't see how I'm going to quite resolve them. And then I am able to figure it out.
I like that part of all writing, but I like that part of suspense writing or mystery writing. It's a challenge to keep those threads going and keep them mysterious enough, with enough balance between the fake clues and then the red.
You've got to create another several suspects. You can't just have, oh, it's obviously that person. Who else could it be?
Well, and I think there were a lot of choices. There were a lot of people behaving in ways they shouldn't have been behaving.
Or that she thinks they wouldn't be behaving.
Right.
So hard to talk about
You can talk about it.
Well, like at the wake,
Yes.
what's his name? It's not Evan. What is it?
Ethan.
Ethan. Ethan being drunk. I wrote him drunk, and then because of course he's one of the suspects. And so I thought, well, if he had done the murder, he would be maybe upset about it and whatever.
Yeah.
But then,
He did it.
yeah, that wasn't the case. So then why is he drunk? And so then I had to kind of think through psychologically that he's upset about who he thinks is the person, because he's close to that person. He doesn't want it to be that person. But he's suspecting it may be that person. And
yeah,
so
he knows too much.
He knows too much.
Suspects. Yeah.
That's again why when Rachel goes to spend the night with Liv after the shooting, that's why he gives her the gun. And he says, I mean, you need to protect yourself against anyone, and I mean anyone. Because again, he thinks there's somebody else that she doesn't suspect that may be going to harm her. So he wants to protect her, and that's why he gives her the gun. Or shows her where the gun is or whatever. So all along it's kind of, you've got a lot of things you're trying to hide, and you're trying to plant seeds so that when you finally do it at the very next to the last chapter, I hope that there are enough things that you go, oh yeah, well, I kind of fell for that just like she did.
Yes.
I fell for the speeding ticket.
Yep.
I fell for the, certain masks that people are wearing. I suspected the wrong person. I've had people tell me they were certainly, it was Shula that was doing it. I was thinking, Julia is hardly in this book. But you're always, people that read a lot of mysteries are always thinking it's the least likely person. And
Right.
she is somebody that, she suspects maybe wants to, push her out of the way for advancement. And that would be a little extreme, it seems like, but she thinks she might be the stalker, not necessarily the person that killed him. So anyway, I'm rattling.
No, it's good stuff. I'm like, it's always fascinating to hear like the process wise. Did you have to go back and rearrange any of the clues or drip in some?
I dripped some in.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
It proceeded fairly, compared to my first book. My first book, I didn't know what I was doing. I can remember my first, I don't know if any of you have ever tried writing a novel, but boy, it's hard. And when I first wrote something and I sent it to somebody that was going to, give me feedback and be a coach or whatever, I can remember her saying, well, we're going to start really back at the beginning with what is a scene. Because I was just kind of describing things, and she said, everything needs to be set as though it's a scene. And here's what a scene is. And so I was really, really, really at the beginning. So that book I wrote the entire book. I sent it out to somebody, and they said, oh, no, there's a big, huge coincidence in this that doesn't work at all.
This is your first book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to change all of it. You might as well just start over again. And I was like, I had written 85,000 words. All of my book was ready.
Painful.
And so I did. And then I got kind of the same I had 3 points of view in the first one, which is also difficult to do when you're writing your first book. And I got the feedback, just pick one for your first book. And it really probably should be the college-age daughter. And so I had to anyway, I wrote that book 3 entire times. I had 3 entire books. I didn't print them, but they looked like this. They were all the way done and made sense all the way through. But they had to be thrown away and started over again. So I didn't want to do it that way this time. I'm a good little student, and I thought there has to be an easier way to do this. So I started plotting. And so I had this one much more planned out. So this one I did plot. So I would say that it somewhat followed who I thought was going to be it. I went back and planted seeds, and I went back and made it more complicated.
Yeah,
but it wasn't just a total rewrite of any kind. As I was writing this one, I thought this one is pretty good. This is not going to need very much editing.
Well, your first book though won awards.
It did. Well,
I mean, the third, your third first book, Yes,
it did. It did. It won more awards than this one has, but I thought this one would get me an agent. I was still in the fantasy of I'm going to get an agent.
Oh, you should have got an agent with this. That's
Yeah,
just crazy business. But that's the publishing industry. That is not a reflection of your writing.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking, this is actually really pretty good.
It is.
And
yeah.
and it's also suspense, which is a real popular genre. Yeah. And I had a fairly large success with my first book. And so I thought, I'm going to get an agent with this, and that's fine. And then when I didn't, I thought, well, shoot, I'm just going to publish it myself. Then I'm not going to go through. So I had gone with a small press the first time. I had the first ones with a small press that was in, I initially signed with somebody that was in, I believe she was in Idaho, and she was a woman-owned press. And we got up to the point where we were going to do the cover. So we had done developmental, again, I had a developmental editor, and we worked on that for 8 months. This is the one I'd done 3 times already. And, but I was getting better. I kind of knew more what I was doing. And then she went bankrupt. And then I thought, oh no, I was just ready to publish.
So frustrating.
And so somebody said, there's somebody just right down the street from you in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Why don't you look at them? And so I did, and they turned out to offer me a contract on the first one. So I hired a publicist. By that time I had done, like, I've done 275 of these podcasts. So by that time I'd done like 150. So I knew a lot of people in the industry. I knew a lot of people. And so I had a fair amount of success with the first book in terms of, like, I had somebody from Oprah that contacted me or,
Yay.
asked for an ARC, asked to read it.
Oh, then you get
Somebody
excited,
from
don't you?
Hello
Oh.
Sunshine with
Reese Witherspoon.
Reese Witherspoon asked to read it. They didn't offer me anything, but they did read it or they asked for it.
Well, you got
They-
one step closer than
I got
a lot of people.
Yeah,
So
a lot of people. And it won 12 awards or something over the time. So I thought, I'm going to get an agent with this one. And then when I didn't, I thought, well, I'm not going to go the small press route again. This is crazy. This is a good book. I'm going to just publish it myself. So I pretty much almost did the cover. I ran across this the other day and I was going to
Cute.
put it around. I
That's so
kind
fun.
of,
Yeah. The cover
because
options.
I came out of the art background.
That's right.
I can't do the art, but I can have the conceptual ideas.
Yeah.
And so these are some ideas that I put together as I was trying to figure out how to do the.
Well, and you know a good cover, but you know good art when you see
Right.
it.
And I know kind of what
yeah.
thriller suspense books are supposed to look like. They're either supposed to be yellow and blue or red and black. And so I was following all the rules, and
That's
it
very
hasn't,
true.
it hasn't sold quite as many, but I don't have a publicist like I did the first time. It's not a debut, and debuts get lots more
They do get more attention.
This one came
That's-
out a
that's-
year ago in May 2024. The other one was in March 2022. And with the other one, what was I going to say about that one? Oh, I was in Marie Claire
Mhm.
online, but I was one of their books to read this spring. And I was on Pop Sugar and I was on something in England that I think they maybe thought I was the other Maggie Smith. Who knows?
They're like, Dame Maggie Smith wrote a book.
It was this online thing that said books to read and there were like 7 or 8 of them and Lucy Foley was in there
You were on a list with Lucy Foley?
and me and
Dang.
all these other big names. I was thinking, they think I'm the other one. But
You know what? Just ride the wave. Just ride the wave.
and I asked my publicist, I said, did you contact this magazine in England? They said, no. And so I don't know how they wound up with it. But anyway, I got a lot more publicity from that one. But this one is still on Goodreads. I think I have almost 200 reviews.
Which is excellent.
And they're like, it's 4.4 average.
Oh my gosh,
which
and
is
on
just
Goodreads,
really-
because
yeah,
Goodreads
Goodreads.
readers are tough
Yes.
reviewers.
So everybody really just likes the book. And I do fool a lot of people with the last reveal. And I think quite a few people realize the first reveal or they by that time caught on or think it might be. And then I lead them down the path again of
Which is great.
it kind of, but not quite. And then, the psychology of a reader is like that. I think that when they think they've got it, and then they do get it, they did guess the person, they feel good. And then it's like, but I got another surprise for you, didn't guess all of it. And then they're kind of okay with that. It's like, okay, I like the fact you fooled me. I got most of it.
I think
But
that's.
I didn't quite get all of it, and I kind of like that. And those things were there for me to see. I could have seen them.
Right.
I could have seen this speeding
Right.
ticket.
Where you're not like the out of left field or
Right.
out of the blue kind of things where you're like, oh, come on.
Oh, come on.
Yeah,
Aliens came down,
Yeah.
and yeah, whatever.
Or I joke with like the kids that we meet here and we do writing workshop. And I say, you're not allowed to end it by, it was all a dream.
Yes.
Like, this is not how we're going to end these stories today. And then we all woke up. No, you can't do that. Do the work, do the work.
Yeah. So I always kind of had that in my mind, and I had the Maltese Falcon thing in my mind. And so I think that readers aren't mad about that last reveal. They
No,
kind of like it.
I think it's brilliant. Well done. I love that.
Yeah.
Because
I think I gave them the first reveal that most people have guessed, and that made them feel good about themselves.
So you did these mock-ups. So TK, she's got a handout where she's showing us all the original ideas for the cover.
I love
Oh, can you show that one more time?
this
yeah,
one.
yeah.
I love that
Oh, nice.
cover, but it just
Yes.
the story. But-
Like a red.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I just thought that would be a big sell.
You know
for
who that
these, but
reminds
it
me of?
attracted attention.
Hank Philippi Ryan.
Yes, it is
Has
lot
a
like-
cover
yeah.
like that, but I think that's a newer cover of hers. Like, I'm not sure that I can't remember which one that is, if that's one that came out since yours came out.
Probably. Someday I'll write a book that can have that. And the Blindspot also fit
Right
well,
across
the
Oh,
title
eyes,
as
yeah.
well.
yeah.
That makes sense.
Oh, which one?
So anyway, it was just,
You know,
it's just a way to
Cover
kind of,
eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, well, that's kind of shortcut. You can ask. You can
Yeah,
ask
so I'm
questions or-
curious, so you talked about your publishing process between the two books. Which do you prefer, or were there things about each
Oh,
that you liked?
I really like indie publishing.
Mhm.
I call it indie publishing. Self-publishing sounds
That's what I
like
call
a
it, too.
vanity thing.
So-
For several reasons. In fact, I bought back the rights to my first book,
Oh,
so
did you?
I own
Okay.
both of the books now. I like being able to run price promotions,
Mhm.
whereas before the publisher really owns the book, so I couldn't put it on sale or go after a special deal or anything like that. I like being able to see every week. I run a spreadsheet on how many books I've sold that week. I couldn't do that. I was getting, well, and you get more money. That was mainly the reason I wanted to do it, was you get more money. And you have control over everything. My small press did give me a lot of control. I was very much a co-partner with the first cover, which also was a knockout cover and got lots of good reviews. But I just felt like there's a little bit of time delay between,
Right.
they do something and then 2 months goes by and then you do something and you just make a lot more money.
And
So
then there probably the royalty reports were maybe monthly, or were they
no,
quarterly?
no, I got one every 6 months.
Oh, every 6
So
months.
I would
So
sell a
hard
book
to
in
know.
January and I would get the money for it in August.
Oh,
6 months and then 2 months for them to do the paperwork. So they'd run it every 6 months. I can see, I ran a business. I know what that's like.
that makes sense.
They don't want to do little checks for $5 every day.
Well, and even Amazon and Ingram have a delay, for
Theirs is a
giving
month.
us your royalty.
Yeah.
But you can see it.
You can see it.
So if you decide to run a 99-cent deal and then put it out there on those different promo stacks,
Yeah.
you can go, what's happening today?
Right.
And maybe you do, I mean, like, some people with series might do a freebie or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, wow, there were 580 downloads today.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, I did a
Mhm.
BookBub international deal. I haven't done a national deal yet. And so it was in England, Canada, Australia. And I put it for the ebook for 99 cents, where it's generally $4.99. And it ran for one day. It was just that one day. And then I got with Valerie and she helped me with the other places to put it. And so in that period of maybe 3 or 4 days, I sold 600 downloads. Well, if I was making what I made from my publisher, I wouldn't have broken even. I had to pay for that. I had to pay $600 or so to have it. I did break even and made a little bit of money because I was making most of the money. Even at 99 cents, I'm still just making 20 cents, but at least I'm not making 2 cents. And so.
And you can do it and you don't have to argue with someone.
Yes, whether they were always willing to do that, but I was just, I tell people, I'm pretty upfront about what I spent on my first book. I knew there was only one debut. You only get one debut. And I hired a publicist for $7,500 and I spent another $7,500 on other things. $2,500 was my own audiobook. So 10,000 was the audiobook and the publicist.
Which isn't $2,500 is probably about a 10-hour audiobook. That's going rate when you hire good talent. And that's about what I spend when I I started out with that ACX royalty share.
Yeah.
But if you want good more talent with more experience, you don't do the royalty share thing. You hire them.
Yeah.
And you pay them outright. Don't share royalties because they got paid.
Yeah.
That's the going rate.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so.
And I did my second book that way. But on the first book, that was mine. I took the rights away from my publisher. So I had that money to begin with.
So if we buy that now, you'll get every.
No, you don't get everything because whoever you buy it from gets a portion of it. So for example, Amazon,
Your book now, how should we buy it?
you
Benefit you.
can only buy it from me. They don't have it anymore.
You did put it all, you've got that all up.
Yeah,
in your own
so if you buy it from
yeah.
Amazon, let's say,
Mhm.
and it's, I think it's $18 or something. It costs approximately $5 or $6 to make the book. So the printing and, that kind of thing. And then I get 60% of $18. And the rest goes to Amazon, and then subtract the $5 or $6 they pay for the book.
Right.
So I make more if you buy it today from me, which is why I can offer $15 instead of $20.
Right.
Yeah, I still make a lot more money. When I would make 10% before. So I would make about a little under $2 when I was with the publisher, and now I make approximately whatever, 70 of 21,
Well, what
12 or
percent
$13.
The big book isn't necessarily their first book.
No, that's true.
Mhm.
So if I say, well, it's my debut book, and I get one debut. Debuts to whoever the person is that's first reading your book. It's irrelevant whether it's your actual first one or not. To them, this is your
Right.
debut book.
And
For the
that's more
for the
relevant
reader.
to it if you're doing a series.
It's kind of-
Yeah, I mean, this may be the first time you're hearing about me. And now I'm telling you about my first book, and you might go buy that after you've already read this. Yeah,
Debut book or something.
yeah.
Well, to the reader, so the problem in the publishing industry is that your debut book means a heck of a lot of different things to the publishers. So if you
And the
have,
media,
and
the
the-
people that are in the
right.
media that are
Right.
publicizing it. So when you see reading lists for the summer, and there's hundreds of books they could pick from that are coming out this summer, and they pick 15 of them. They pick the ones generally that are from the big five, or that has a really good publicist, or is a really buzzy book.
Right.
And that is publicity that you don't have to pay for, other than the publicist that you pay for. But advertising is something you pay for. So
Right.
if you see it, I advertise it on
Facebook or
Facebook
Amazon.
or Amazon
yeah.
or something, I'm paying for that ad. And what I was kind of implying was, I put $15,000 into there's just
It
everything.
adds up.
I made this is what my first book looks like.
Yeah,
That's a
I
pretty
like-
neat cover.
It
It's
is
really
a
pretty.
cover. I like that cover. Mhm.
And I made these books, little things that I'm gonna give out tonight to somebody, person that asked the best question. So I made these little books. Well, that wasn't free. That was
Right.
part of my additional $5,000 I spent to advertise that book. Bookmarks.
No, I was just thinking.
Traveling to book fairs.
All the stuff
Huh?
I bought last fall for my books.
Oh, you just, after you've done it, you bought the tablecloth, you bought after you buy your first book, you've bought some of these things, so
Oh
you
my
don't have to
gosh.
do it anymore.
I mean,
And now I
no
look at
fun.
it totally differently than I did before. It's like when somebody says, will you come and talk, or will you? And I think, last time I went to that place, I sold 2 books. That didn't pay for my gas to get there. I'm not going. And so
which is really smart though.
yeah,
So hopefully you'll come back again here. Wait, how many books? I think, I don't know. We'll find out.
well, and also that also what you're talking about really works for series. And I noticed that many of the people that you're reading
We tend to read, we do a lot of series.
have series. So if you do, you read their third book, because that's the one they're talking about now, David Ellis. And he hasn't really, I don't think he's done too many series, but if you like him, you're going to go back and read some other books of his.
Right. So that mean that, to your point, Pete, that is, it doesn't matter where our entry point is. Like,
Right.
this isn't David Ellis's first book, but it will be the first one we're
Somebody
reading.
told me, buy this book because it's their debut book.
It doesn't mean
No,
anything.
it's not necessarily you.
Yeah.
Although I will say that a lot of times when I'm getting ready to read somebody that's written 12 books, I like reading their first book, because oftentimes it's the one they worked on for years.
Mhm.
And some of these people, after they get into the 8th book, they're churning one of these out every year. And sometimes
Or-
they're just
Or more
not that
frequently
good,
than that.
or they're getting kind of stale, or they're repeating themselves a little bit. So I like to read some of the first books, because sometimes that's their best book. They were like me, they had worked on it for 3 years and had 3 rewrites and all that. But it's more the publicity that you get rather than the readers itself that get that. And always somebody's looking for the next new author that's going to wind up being Ann Patchett
the new
or
thing.
something.
Right.
I was kind of old also. I mean, they also tend to have some ageism going on there. So, and I don't blame them. I mean, agents also, if you're going to sign somebody and work to develop their career over time. If they're as old as me, I got maybe three, 4 books, and then I'm going to be done. And somebody that starts at 25 or 30 may not be as wise as I am about psychological things,
Mhm.
but they are going to have a much longer career span. So to invest in them like an agent or a publisher would be, it makes sense. It's again, a business standpoint.
I've stripped a lot of the age-related things out of my stuff.
You don't tell people how old you are.
I don't mind telling people how old I am. I just don't put it out on my website and stuff. Things that make it obvious.
Yeah.
Like what era I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Proud member of the class of
And,
1986.
I oftentimes, I do look younger than 76 years old. And I will have people on the podcast. I had one this week and she was 76 years old. And I looked at her and I thought, oh, I can see why people say that. So oftentimes they do, well, gray hair
And
does that. I haven't let my
And
hair.
it's a mindset too. Like
Yeah.
I feel like you're the kind of person who's a lifelong learner and you're not bogged down with things. Like to me, like if there's something you need to know for your book career, you learn it.
Mhm.
You don't put up the barrier, oh, I don't do that. I'm too old for that. Or I let somebody else handle the technology. And maybe that's the businesswoman in you, like,
Maybe.
your background, but I think there's also a mindset, about being able to tackle things that come your way, no matter what age you are, that makes people seem, younger than their chronological years sometimes.
Well, I met through email today. I have yet to actually meet her in person, but a writer that just moved to Milwaukee, and I just can tell from what she's written and how she looks that she's quite a bit younger than me. And she signed with a big agent, and they're chopping her book around. And I'm thinking, she's going to have a different direction than I
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
because she is younger. And yet I also think sometimes with age, hopefully comes some wisdom. And so you've had more life experiences, you have something to pull from to write about certain types of books as well, or certain types of situations, human
Right.
situations as well.
Right. And TK mentions in a comment here that like it's a real thing. I mean, the ageism that I'm sure that has come up for her too. She says we should talk about that more at some point. Did you mean tonight or just generally?
No, just generally. I just think it's worth a conversation because I think it's real and I think it's important and it's,
On
it's
the
a
other
thing
hand,
that-
there is something to be said for, I had owned a company, sold a company. I had gotten some money from that.
Mhm.
So I had $15,000 to
Right.
invest in a book. So I had that freedom to do that.
Right.
I had the freedom to independently publish. I am not dependent on my book to make a living.
Right.
So that doesn't necessarily apply to people that are younger, that are trying to have a career where all they do is write. So there's pluses and minuses
For
like
sure.
anything in life.
For sure. And the same thing too, for me, like I had set aside the budget to do those 2 books last year and do them the right way. Like the one for the younger kids needed illustrations. It needed a certain type of artist who could handle that for middle grade. That's not me. I don't do that stuff. Well, that's not free, right?
Yeah.
You're going to hire somebody to do that. So it's worth it to spend the money on things. And you only get the one shot at that. So that makes sense to me budget wise, that you were not going to, well, let's just see what happens. No, you have to actually be proactive.
And I also think that I am mature emotionally enough to say, I said to myself, you're just doing some of this for the ego. I get a kick out of saying, oh, Sunshine read my book.
And you should.
Oprah read my book. Yeah, I mean, that feels good to me. It's a pat on the back for myself.
Yeah.
And I'm aware that I'm doing it. It's not like I'm just, people look at me and say, oh, well, isn't she stuck on herself? I realized I was stuck on myself. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be, kind of making a splash. So I paid for it.
Yeah. No, and you hired Dana Kay?
Yeah.
Well, in Dana Kay, like we were talking earlier, they've been sending us some of the authors. So Dave Ellis came to us through Dana Kay, Tracy Clark, who zoomed in January. And I'm sure there'll be others. Jeff Hoffman, Nick Petrie. They were all from Dana K.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we may have, I've known about them, but I would never have really approached them because I wouldn't have assumed that they would be interested in coming here from,
Yeah.
Milwaukee or what.
She's a PR firm in Chicago.
Yeah,
She owns a
yeah.
PR firm.
And so I only ever speak to the other people. Dana K has many, many people who work
Yes.
for her. I speak to the other people, not Dana K.
Well, and that's also an example of how the publishing world is a little bit elitist when it comes to indie publishing.
Yes.
Dana K won't accept authors for clients that self-publish.
Right.
So my first book was with a small press, but it was still with a press. And
Mhm.
it wasn't something I was doing myself. So I knew that about her. And that also, I had already talked to her when I was with the other place that went bankrupt. And so I knew that I would have to be with a press if I wanted to hire her. And so that was another thing and all the different reasons I was picking.
Well, and it makes sense too. They get probably so many inquiries that
It's a way
people
for
that
them
they
to-
wouldn't work with.
Yeah.
And you know for sure, typically that a higher percentage of the books that are traditionally published are going to have been done very well.
Well, and
Not
they're
all,
going to
but-
people and it's their reputation also. So
Yeah.
for example, I don't know if anybody knows what NetGalley is, but it's something that authors use to put up what are called ARCs, advanced reader copies, to get early reviews for their book. And so my first book I had put on NetGalley, and that's where Oprah and Hello Sunshine came from. So when I was curating who was getting the copies and picking and choosing kind of thing. And when I saw that, I was like, ah, ah. And so what I did was I called my person at Dana K and said, should I just do something different or just send them a book like everybody else? And she said, okay, this is what you do. You just send them a book like they're anybody else. That's what they ask for. Then in a week, we will follow up on our letterhead saying, this is a client of ours, you asked for her book, and outlining about her. So that was another way that I
Mhm.
thought, well, I have a little leg up here because I have somebody behind me that maybe they've heard of that might have a little bit more clout with them. That
That's Shay.
it's all a game,
but it matters though too, because if anybody's on the fence ever, about whether would they want to, acquire TV or movie rights or something,
Yeah.
just that knowing that you've got a professional team,
Yeah.
is that the tipping point? I don't know, but it can't
and
hurt.
both my first book and this book, I mean, I could see this being a limited series on Netflix.
I could see
very
it. Yeah, for sure.
because it's got lots of twists and turns. It's got interesting characters,
Yeah.
and it's
Perfect for Netflix.
Anybody out there listening?
Netflix. Do you guys have questions?
I've got one of these for the person that asked me the best.
Oh, I get a good question going. You get it.
And it won't be Valerie.
No, it's fine.
So you said you bought it, so did you plot the entire thing? Or was it
Pretty
just like a really?
Well, plotting in the sense of like I'd have a little paragraph about each chapter. This is kind of what happens
So you did
here.
all that first and then second.
Kinda, yeah.
And then maybe took different turns.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And then how long did this one take you to write?
This didn't take nearly as long. This one took, I think about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was much quicker because hopefully I'm getting better at this. I'm learning something. I say it's a craft, but it should be a craft that I can learn and get better. Although I am kind of stuck on my third one, but when I started, I literally at one point said, I don't even know how many chapters are in a book. I mean, I've been a lifelong reader all my life, but you don't pay attention to that stuff as a reader. Or how long are they? Yeah, and does it matter what kind of book I'm writing, how long they are, and what's the point of view I'm going to have, and so all those kind of crafty kind of things that I had a whole bookshelf that I could just go reach up and pull
Right.
Ann Patch's book out and Meg Waltz's book out, and and I did. I had a couple of books that I actually kind of like. I was in English class. I wrote out all their chapters and how long each one was, and when the turning points where I did some structural kinds of
Mhm.
things that people say and said, well, did this work? And I found a real old book called Marathon Man. You probably can maybe remember the movie with Dustin Hoffman, but it was a book before then. And that was one of the ones I outlined all the way through. And this one thing that I was going by, like Save the Cat or something, it was so, I mean, they say, well, I get 100, how long is this book supposed to be? I reached all these books up and they were all around 3 to 350. I mean, I knew I wasn't getting a 700-page book printed for my first book. So, I think, okay, about 300. And this Save the Cat thing said, and at the halfway point, there should
Yeah.
be this. And so at Marathon Man, it was 300 pages. And when I got to 150 pages, it exactly at 150 pages had that turning point. I thought he must have been following this, or he just did this innately, or the Save the Cat read his book and said,
Yep.
we'll make it like that. But yeah, there are some guidelines at 75 in a 300-page book again. 75 pages is the end of the first act.
Mhm.
So I was trying to make the stalker get killed right at page 150. I think it wasn't quite at that because I think this book is a little bit shorter than that. But anyway, I was trying to kind of follow those a little bit too, of when do you reveal certain things, and yeah.
So there's from Save the Cat, there's the beat sheets.
Yes,
Where
yeah.
so I'm trying to think what book it was that I knew the rhythm was off. It wasn't working. And you can feed in, there's a auto like calculator thing online. And you say, okay, it's a 275-page book. And it'll give you
So at that first end of the first act which would be 70 instead of 75.
And so, and you realize you can see right away if you know your book well, like where the mistake is, where the lagging bit,
Yeah.
and what you're gonna have to speed up or slow down or whatever.
And writing a suspense, it's much like you said, the chapters are usually quite short.
Mhm.
I didn't want to write a real short chapter. Some of mine are short, but not as short as some people. I mean,
There's some
Harlan
people who have-
Coben
oh,
was like,
1-pagers, one and a
Yeah.
half pages.
it's like,
it's a
oh,
weird
okay, you're
thing.
kind of padding this book because, this page has, and then you start a new chapter, you've just written a blank
Yeah.
for a whole page. But yeah, things like that, I have always been pretty good at dialogue.
Mhm.
So dialogue has not been something that I had to practice I seem to be able to write fairly well.
Your dialogue is good.
But I don't do settings very well. I mean, it's just kind of like, hey, it's a room, it's a room. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I have to tell you what's in the room and what color the carpet is. And
So I was thinking about, this is the opening chapter, and you've got her in the fister
Yes.
for the fundraiser.
Yes.
And this is something that I often think of, and we've had fundraisers at the fister for our charity, but I'm like, should we really use the fister? It's really posh. And they usually give the charities a deal, like they do as much as they can for you to keep the cost down. But
Yeah.
it's the same thought I had, which is,
can
for
they afford
charity,
this?
should we really be at the fister for a charity? I'm like, hey, I've thought that, walking out, getting off the elevators on the 7th floor of the
Yeah.
fister.
Because I've been there enough that I knew what it was, what floor it was. And
But
I thought there's going to be some eagle-eyed Milwaukee people that are going to catch me if I do anything.
if you get off at the 12th,
Yeah.
because that's that's not going to work. That was fun though, all the Milwaukee locations. I really love that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've been there. I know where that is.
Yeah, my first book was set in Chicago. And I went to Northwestern, so that's in Evanston. So I'd been to Chicago quite a bit. And I had lived in Chicago on and off a little bit through my growing up adult years. So I set that one in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, this time I'd like to set it in Milwaukee. That would be fun. And so, yeah, I mistakenly thought that the first book being in Chicago would sell lots of books in Chicago. And I thought, there's 3 million people just live in Chicago. All I have to do is market in Chicago. But I didn't sell that many books in Chicago. So this one, I just thought I'm going to write about my own.
Did you, which one was a finalist for the book of the year, the Chicago Writers Book of the Year?
This one was
Blindspot. Yeah. See, it didn't have to be set in
It
Chicago.
didn't. It didn't have to be set in Chicago.
Did you have all the characters when you initially started?
Like the private eye and.
Yeah, I had the major characters, yeah. You know, I knew mother and daughter, that would be a subplot that I would have to work in that, you know, is pretty integral to really what's going on. And I think the brother was, I made him gay at one point. At one point he was a man about town. He was kind of a playboy. I had her mother die, and then other times she was alive, and other times I had a death scene. You know, I wrote some scenes that I said, oh no, I
Pull
don't
them
need the
out.
mother, let's pull them out. I tend to change characters' names a lot. And that's a little confusing for me because you can do a find and replace pretty easily, but I'll be talking to somebody that I've talked to about the book before as I'm writing it, and I'll say, well, and then Rachel, and they'll say, who's Rachel? And I said, Rachel's the main character. I thought that was Jody. Oh, well, I changed her name. Because sometimes as I write them, they don't feel like that name fits them anymore.
I think that makes a lot of sense, though. Like that,
Maybe.
I mean,
And vice versa.
Yeah.
You name them something and think, oh, that's what they're like. You know, I actually, it's interesting because in this one we have, those of you that have read it, there are several plays on names. There's the kids changing their name, and there's a play on the names at the end. And in my first book, there is somebody that has changed their name. And I changed my name. So my original name was not Maggie Smith when I was born. It was Martha Muir. Well, I had a different last name, of course, because I wasn't married, but it was Martha. And I grew up as a child in the 50s in elementary school with the name Martha, which I really always hated. And so I got to be 40 and I thought, you know what? I'm a grown ass woman. I don't have to have a name that I don't like anymore. So I did some research. I went around for a year throwing out names to people. And like a lot of people my age, I had it down to Kate, for Kate Hepburn, of course, and Maggie or Maddie, because Moonlight at that time was so Maddie. And also Maddie and Maggie, I thought I could kind of pretend that was always a nickname for Martha and nobody ever knew. And I would throw out Maggie, and I would say at least a third of the people, if not a half of the people, said, sounds like a dog. And I thought,
maybe.
sounds like a dog. Rover sounds like a dog. But then I read later, like Maggie is the second most popular name for dogs. And I was like,
I did not know that.
okay, well, that's still what I picked. And then I was then married to a guy named Smith. And I hadn't changed my name when we got married. But I thought, if I now change my first name, and I want to change my last name, because I was doing telemarketing, we had come from, my company started as a regional, or actually local. We had stores in Mayfair Mall and Southridge Mall and selling art. And then when we went national, I was doing a lot more time on the phone. And I was saying Muir was my last name, like Muir Woods or John Muir.
Sure.
And it's not an uncommon name now. It's David Muir is famous for being a newscaster, but people had trouble with how to spell it. They'd think there was an L. It's M-U-E-L. No, M-U-I-R. M-U-I-L-R. No. So I thought I'm going to change my last name too. And I was married to Smith, and I thought, well, he's been a terribly good sport not changing my name when we got married. But now if I change it to Johnson, he's going to say, well, what the hell is wrong with Smith? And then I thought Maggie Smith. Oh, then people will say, oh, like the actress. And I'll say, yes. And then it'll be like they remember me. And so.
So my legal last name is Johnson. And that's my married name.
You've seen that name, though. You use that name.
It pops up because it's hard to get rid of it entirely in this world. And so I published my first book, and my mom's like, and it's my maiden name, it's my middle name now.
Yeah.
So Valerie Beal. And she's like, is everything okay in your marriage? But I wasn't using Johnson.
See, now I'm not married to Smith anymore. I'm married to somebody else. So it's good that
But his last name's not Johnson. So
his name's not Johnson.
It's like, why would I use that name when I've got this perfectly good maiden name? Oh
So
my God.
anyway,
Names are
I
funny.
realized
Names
that
are funny.
when people say, well, is there anything about you in your books? And somebody pointed that out that knew I had changed my name and said, "You've got name changes in all your books." And I thought, yeah, I guess I kind of do. That's kind of weird. But my first book has a character that changed her name when she left at 18 because she didn't like her father and she was trying to kind of disown him, and wound up being a famous journalist. So she has kind of her name is Jocelyn Jones, and it's kind of a catchy
Very good.
name.
I like that.
So she's very open. I mean, that's kind of, it's not nothing
Well,
hidden like in here.
Names are fun. I mean, okay, besides getting pets, right? Or having kids, and then after a while, you aren't going to keep having kids so you can name them, right? Because they're just an awful lot of work. So I think
Pets.
both kids and pets. But it's so much fun. That's one of the things I love the most about writing is coming up with the names for the characters. And I don't know, I just get a kick out of that. It's good
And I
fun.
did make an effort, both I was advised to do this in the first book, and then I purposely did on the second book, to add in ethnic groups.
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah,
Particularly in Chicago and Milwaukee.
of course.
You know,
Yep.
it would be unusual to just have all these people living in Milwaukee and none of them are Black or none of them are any kind of other ethnic group. So in my first book, I had someone that was Black dating a white guy that was not the major characters, but they were secondary characters. I had a Hispanic little boy that lived upstairs. And so I had various kinds of, that was a change afterwards that I purposely did to make it more diverse.
That makes sense. More questions?
I have a question about,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna ask why, is your main character a lawyer and did you have to do a lot of research on?
Yeah, that's a good
Being a
question. I'm not a lawyer. I thought about, after I finished my PhD, I actually took the LSATs to go to law school.
Did you?
And one of my friends sat me down and said, Martha, time to go to work. You can't go to school the rest of your life.
Well, you could.
You could, but she was telling me something. I was 26 and it was like, okay, time to get out in the real world. But I've always thought I would have been good at law and interested in law. And I've watched all of the Law and Orders and stuff. And I read a lot of legal thrillers and stuff. But I did have I went to a really fun thing that they offered in Appleton called Cop Camp for writers.
Mm.
And I spent a weekend there at the training center and we've shot fake pistols. And they had this huge screen that had a projected real life people that they had filmed. And you were standing there with your kind of fake gun and you were the policeman that had been called out and you were supposed to see whether you would use deadly force or not, and we did fingerprinting and we met a canine dog and various things. Well, one of the people that we met was an assistant district attorney in Racine. And so I had lunch with her and had her read the book and had her, she said, well, for one thing, and this was something I then had to go back and change. She said, you're describing Rachel's office as though it's quite plush and it's like a office.
Yeah.
Well, we have a closet. Think of a closet.
It's not
She
great.
said, 2 people in the room, that's enough. You can't fit the third person. So that you'll notice that whenever she has somebody, she takes them to a conference room. And then she said, we don't have separate secretaries. I had her, Rita, I think is her name. She was her personal private secretary. And she said, no, we don't have that. 10, 15 of us share one secretary. So I said, but I thought, but the relationship is real close. And so I said something of Rita's, you're my favorite one, or,
That works.
yeah. So there were things like that I changed. And then the cop that was doing this, he also read it and gave me some tips about jurisdiction. I mean, who would be the person, like the sheriff
Mhm.
is in charge of the parks. So since the initial
Very good
thing
point
is,
in Milwaukee.
yeah, it's not the
Okay.
police, so the sheriffs would be there.
Mhm.
And then they don't have necessarily detectives or anything. So when it turns into a murder, they would call in probably Milwaukee police. She lives in Whitefish Bay, I think it is. And that's a separate
Right,
cop.
right.
And
A different municipality with their
yeah,
own police force,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. So, she knows because she works in the Milwaukee County district attorney's office, she knows the Milwaukee Police Department. In fact, it's right across the street in real life from where the offices of the attorney are. So like when that was another thing, I had her walk into the police station and go up and say, I'd like to see this and wait. And then they buzzed her in and she said, they would know her. She would just they'd just buzz her in to go see the cop. She knows these
There would be
people.
no waiting.
She's
Yeah.
she's there all the time. So that was something. And so those kind of technical things, I got some experts to talk to me about just what I'd written and how I was wrong. And
Make it authentic. Go ahead. What was your question?
I was gonna ask a question about, earlier on, you were talking about the vase of flowers in the grave, and it made me think about, I read a lot of series, and I've listened to authors say like, well, the character kind of writes themselves after a while, because you've developed this personality. And
I think that would happen more in series, probably.
I was just wondering how much that happens with a single book, and whether there's
But you get a little bit into their
mind.
mindset of what they would do, and you want to make sure that what you're having them say and what they're doing and their motives and their motivations and guilt and anything is something that you feel like that character would be true to that character. And so usually, I write in both of my books are written in first person. And I just feel like I usually have a woman I do, in both my books have a woman that's the character. And she's somebody that I feel like is a lot like me. And not necessarily what she's doing for a living, but the first book was a 25-year-old girl that was a journalism major from Northwestern. Yeah, so I went, right, what I kind of knew where Sheridan Road was, and she was going many, many years after I was there, but it was still something I was familiar with, and I had Chicago landmarks that I was familiar with there. So I just had to remember what it was like to be a 25-year-old. I interviewed somebody on a podcast once, and she had written a book where the main character was 12, and I said, wasn't that hard to remember what it's like to be 12? And she said, you don't remember what it's like to be 12? I remember it perfectly. And I thought, no, I don't remember that. But she was obviously very self-aware as a 12-year-old. And so different people are but I write men and I'm not a man. So
do you feel inclined to do a series, or do you like to?
I actually have thought, could I make both of these into a series? The two of them, like, could Charlie go to school at Northwestern and meet the person that was, or in the first book, in the first book, I have if it was just a standalone sequel, basically it's, again, three women, Jocelyn Jones, who's the famous journalist, accused of plagiarism. So that has a lot of things about social media and Twitter and wrecking of reputations and journalistic ethics and that kind of thing. And the young reporter who's 25, who is her assistant for reasons that are gone into, and her mother, who is 40 something and running for a congressional seat, US congressional seat, and as a Republican. And both these other people are Democrats or liberals, and she's a conservative. And so the daughter and her clash over that, a little bit like I talked about my mother and me. And so I was writing a 25-year-old there, but I was also writing a 65-year-old in the Jocelyn Jones, and I was writing a 40-year-old in the conservative. The mother turned out in that one to be the most interesting character to write. I thought she would be the hardest, and she was in some ways the hardest because she was the least like me. But she wound up being the person that I felt like I could dig deeper into, and had more layers to her, and was a very protective mother. But there was a reason that came out and that was one, since I said I read that 3 times, that was one I didn't know why she was protective. And as I rewrote the book in a different kind of format and a different plot, it came out why she was that way, and a little bit why she was conservative. And they primarily clashed over abortion. And the book came out in 2022, which was right when Roe and Wade, and I thought, oh my God, I mean, this is where you can't write to what's happening, but sometimes you get lucky and you are writing to what's happening.
Yep.
And so I got asked a lot about that on podcasts of how did you know to write about that, or was that hard to write? And I thought, well, when I wrote it, I didn't know that was going to happen.
You can have other things happen too, like Janae Sakin had her whole third book done, and then we pulled out of Afghanistan. And she was with 1016.
Yeah.
And she had to rewrite the whole thing because she
Oh,
was trying to mesh it with the real
Oh.
world event
Oh,
in
okay,
Afghanistan, and
okay.
she, couldn't
yeah,
do that.
1016 was the same
press.
person.
This,
Press.
So
So yeah, that's something that you just kind of go, oh, okay. I forgot what your original question is. I'm sorry.
whether you're going to do series. So I
Oh, a series.
I like the idea of I like the combination in a way. Would be kind of cool.
It would be
to
kind of
bring
cool.
your cast of characters together.
Right, because you
Yeah.
could see somebody in Chicago and Milwaukee. But in this one, I thought, I could have Rachel, she's veering to, her father is a famous defense lawyer. And she's veering toward, I feel like, maybe saying, maybe I should be a attorney for the defense rather than the prosecutor. She's feeling guilty about. So I could see me kind of, her goes to join his group, and then
Well,
they,
and
investigate
think about
things.
this too, like you've got all of the emotional baggage from the story we've just read, just like things that she's going to probably need to work through for a good long time. I mean, her story arc would be very full, I think, and then we already would be informed as to why she might react in certain ways.
And I've also thought about whether the daughter is, in this book, the daughter is getting ready to head into her senior year. So there's a lot of talk about picking colleges and where she's going to go and what she wants to major in. And at one point, those of you that have read this, and you probably have, even because it's pretty early in the book, where she's saying, well, I may just never go to college. I may just travel around and I'll just use my college fund. And I was saying that particular dialogue was very easy to write because I had that conversation with my mother. And I was just channeling what we were both saying to each other, well, you think everybody could do that? Well, not everybody would be brave enough to do that,
the sassy
Yes,
talk, right?
exactly. So I could see the daughter going to college and like her roommate being accused of murder or something. But Rachel isn't an investigator, or she's not a prosecutor, she's not a defense lawyer. So she's a prosecutor in Milwaukee County. She wouldn't be involved other than just the amateur sleuth, the person that goes down there and she
Which can also be kind of
can't very well take Max. So I don't know, but yeah. Or she could have another love interest. She could drop the one that she winds up at the end of the, just, whatever. But yeah, I've thought about that. I mean, people generally do that because they want to write a lot of books, and it is, from back to the monetary consideration, it is better to have a series because then it is easier to sell them. And you can, give away the first one to get people hooked.
You can leverage it, like the lost leader and stuff.
It's like writing books altogether new. The one I'm writing now is set in a vineyard north of Santa Barbara.
Oh, that's a jump.
It's just, I just thought, well, I'm kind of interested in vineyards, and why not? This would be something different. So I kind of like starting over again every time.
Your research is traveling.
Constraints, definitely.
Yeah.
So you can travel.
Yes, I
research
have
and
to
then
do
go
all
there.
these tastings.
Yeah.
It's really going to be very little about, I've read a few books that had a lot to do with the vineyard and how it works. And I thought, well, I wasn't planning on going into that. Her basically, her grown 26-year-old daughter stepdaughter is getting married the next day, and she's kidnapped. That's how it starts.
Oh,
And so it's a kidnapping story.
that sounds
And
good.
Kind of back to the 2 nights in Lisbon thing, and it all kind of works together. I think that'll probably be my last book. I don't know. I don't have another idea past then, but
Oh, you will.
ideas come.
You will
go.
because they're in there. You're a writer.
Yeah.
You'll get one. We went longer tonight, but we were waiting in the beginning and chatting. Are there any final questions? No? No?
So psychologically, we have a very intelligent protagonist making very bizarre decisions.
Sometimes bad decisions, yes.
Do you think that happens a lot? I mean, I guess everybody has their pros. and
That's
cons,
probably
but
the
it's like,
biggest comment
what?
that's negative that I get for the book is she's breaking the law in a couple of cases. She's destroying evidence. She's not necessarily making the best decisions. And all I can say is, well, and I think prior to completing the book, I mean, when I was first writing it, it was just a stalker after her. And I thought, I think it needs to have the daughter being threatened. Because I think otherwise it just looks like it will make more sense that she is making bad decisions because she's so anxious about her daughter. If it's just her,
Yes.
then it would be like, why is she, buck up. And so I made that. And the other thing that I added, I can remember adding this after the fact again, because people thought she's so dumb. She's taking this bag of money. I had her put the tracker device in the duffel bag. Because I thought that at least gives me a little, she's not totally dumb. But yeah, that is probably, and that's just, if she acted the way she should, they wouldn't go anywhere.
The story would not have been a story.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You kind of just act on impulse when it.
Yeah, you do.
Especially when it impulse.
yeah, I think that was
Right.
the key, that it was her daughter that was getting, and that's what tips her over. He says, and I tried to think of something, the gouge your eyeball out was something, or however he says it. But I thought, to me, that is more frightening, that someone would take your daughter, take her eye out and then return her,
Yeah.
almost than just kidnapping her. It's like, that would be so terrible that it would just be something I would want not to have happen. To again show you kind of for my third book, sometimes I'm dealing with things myself. And my husband currently, that is the father of these children I talked about, and I had some marital problems at one point. And I was thinking, and I actually talked to the kids about it. We separated for about 6 months. That's when I lived in Chicago. And I talked to the kids, and they were then about 14 and 15 or something. And we were all just crying because I was thinking, well, we all say we're going to stay close and stay connected. But if I'm divorced from your father, he's your father, and I'm what? A stepmother you've known for
Yeah.
3 years.
You have no rights, technically.
And I
then.
have no rights.
Yep.
And,
Mhm.
as you get older, you're going to have plenty of relatives that you're going to want to be with, not the person that used to be married once upon a time to your father. So I would be not only losing my marriage, but I would be losing children.
Mhm.
And that was this impetus to the third book of just, this is a stepchild, not her own child, that gets kidnapped. And she's the one that has to come up with the money. And she and her husband are having problems. Now, so it's kind of like, who is your family and when do they get to be your family forever? And if you are just that by marriage, are they your family forever? So it started out with her being at the wedding and looking at the bride and saying, but if I divorce her father, will this even be my family anymore? And so sometimes it's just things like that, that either I am going through or a friend of mine is going through, that I think that's an idea that I can make something out of for a book. And it won't necessarily turn out, it won't look like it's my story, but it's the seed of, it's the same feeling, even though it's a different plot,
Yep.
if you will.
That makes
Mhm.
sense. It makes a lot of sense. I look forward to that one.
I'm only 40 pages in, so
We'll
got a lot to get.
We'll get going. Get going. So thank you for coming to join
Oh,
us
it's my
tonight.
pleasure.
Thank you. We appreciate it.